A colleague adds one more task to an already impossible pile. The mouth says, of course, but inside, a knot tightens. A friend asks for a favor there is simply no energy for. A polite yes is offered, while every fiber of the being screams no. A partner makes a casual, cutting remark, and the response is a forced smile. A swift change of subject, anything to avoid the tremor of conflict. This isn't kindness, it's not generosity, it's an involuntary survival strategy, a script learned so long ago that the actor has forgotten they are playing a part. The pattern has several distinct signatures. The first is a chronic state of low-level resentment, the slow burn of frustration that builds with every swallowed no. It's the quiet bitterness that simmers under the surface of 100 small accommodations. The second is a portfolio of imbalanced relationships. The person becomes the reliable one, the therapist friend, who holds space for everyone else's crisis but finds their own calls go to voicemail. This is the domain of the classic peacemaker archetype, a recurring pattern of behavior motivated by a deep need for harmony. Peacemakers are brilliant mediators and stabilizers, but in their shadow form, they avoid conflict at all costs, even if the cost is their own well-being. They become reliable, but not always respected, helpful, but not whole. They are the person who consistently overgives, attracting others who, sensing a willingness to bend, learn to take too much. Finally, there is the slow hollowing out, the feeling of an identity starting to fade. When a person is constantly deferring to what others want, their own needs and values grow blurry. They risk becoming a dependable shadow in their own life, an echo of other people's expectations. Why do some people become trapped in this way? The answer is not a simple lack of willpower. Often, the real reason lies in a powerful trauma response called fawning. Psychotherapist Pete Walker coined the term for what is now considered the fourth F in the threat response system: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawning is a strategy to avoid conflict by pleasing and appeasing, often at a great personal expense. It's not a conscious choice, but a reflex born out of a deeply rooted fear. This reflex is like an oversensitive smoke alarm, wired to treat the slightest whiff of social friction as 5-alarm fire. This wiring is often set in childhood. In some families, a child learns that expressing needs is met with anger, criticism, or even emotional shutdown. Their biological need for attachment clashes with their need for safety. The child's mind finds a brilliant workaround. If I become exactly what they want me to be, quiet, helpful, and agreeable, I can avoid harm and keep the connection I need to survive. It's a way of gaining a sense of control in an uncontrollable world. The child builds a predictable system. If they are perfect, they are safe. Love begins to feel like a form of hostage negotiation because their compliance is the ransom paid for continued connection. This is the fawn response. The nervous system learns to equate disagreement with danger, and people-pleasing becomes the default safety maneuver. It's the genius of a young mind figuring out how to survive. The cost of this adaptation is immense and mostly invisible. Continually suppressing one's true feelings to keep the peace can trigger a chronic stress response. This internal state of high alert revs up the body's stress engines, which can promote inflammation and weaken the immune system. Beyond physical health, the identity itself becomes to erode. To secure their role, the peacemaker becomes a master at reading the room and sensing what others need. They begin to wear a kind of mirror suit, reflecting back whatever others expect to see. Over time, it becomes difficult to remember the person who exists underneath. This leads to a state of identity fragmentation, where there is a different self for every context. A work self, a family self, a social self, but no integrated core. This constant self-suppression leads to a quiet exhaustion, a burnout born not from hard work, but from the emotional labor of holding everyone else's difficult feelings. The social consequences are paradoxical. In the effort to be liked by everyone, the person may end up being truly known by no one. Relationships remain shallow because true connection requires authenticity, and authenticity is the very thing that has been sacrificed. They're surrounded by people, but feel profoundly lonely, liked by the role they play, not for the person they are. Escaping the fawn trap is not about flipping a switch to become brutally assertive overnight. The goal is to gently and intentionally retrain the nervous system, teaching it that it's possible to be both safe and authentic. The first step is observation without judgment. A pattern cannot be changed if it's not seen. It starts with paying attention to the body. When someone makes a request, what is the immediate physical sensation? A tightness in the chest? A pit in the stomach? That is the authentic no trying to be heard before the mouth says yes. This is not about self-criticism, it's about gathering data, mapping the internal landscape with curiosity. The people-pleasing reflex is automatic. To break it, one must create space between the request and the response. The pause is a secret weapon. It's a small sanctuary in time, an internal space to consult one's true feelings. Instead of an instant yes, a person can arm themselves with simple, neutral buffer phrases to buy time. Let me check my calendar and get back to you. I need a moment to think about that. The pause shatters the conditioned response and puts the power of choice back in their hands. Saying no can feel terrifying because the brain may still perceive it as a threat. The key is to start with low-stakes situations to prove that it's now safe. Think of it like learning a new language. The first few words feel awkward and foreign, but with practice, they become a natural part of your vocabulary. It might be a no to a cashier offering a store credit card, a no to a dessert one does not truly want. Each small refusal is an act of cartography, drawing a line on a map to show where one's own territory begins. Each time a tiny boundary is set and the world doesn't end, the old wiring is being rewritten. No is a complete sentence. It does not require a lengthy explanation. As these steps are practiced, a profound shift begins, but it's not always a comfortable one. The first phase of setting boundaries is often marked by intense discomfort, guilt, anxiety, and the fear of rejection can surge as the old programming screams that this new behavior is dangerous. It can feel like a betrayal of the peacemaker role that has defined one's life for so long. This is the necessary turbulence of a course correction. It's the ship turning in a storm, churning the water before it finds its new, truer heading. After this discomfort, the constant, low-level anxiety that hums in the background starts to fade. Energy is no longer leaked through 1,000 tiny, unintended yeses. It becomes clear that setting boundaries does not push the right people away. It draws them closer. People who truly care will respect new limits. Those who protest are often revealing that their affection was conditional on a lack of boundaries. Relationships become more real because they're based on authenticity, not a role. And most importantly, the person begins to reconnect with themselves. By honoring their own needs, they rediscover the individual who was buried under layers of accommodation. The journey out of the trap of being too nice is not about becoming selfish or unkind. It's a journey back to the self. It's about understanding that the pattern being unlearned was once a brilliant strategy that kept a child safe. That part of the self deserves a thank you for its service, not judgment for its methods. It was a shield, expertly crafted for a war that has long since ended. The process of setting it down is quiet and sometimes lonely. It involves grieving the simple, clear role of being the good one and accepting the more complex, nuanced reality of being a whole person. It's the act of gently showing that old, vigilant part of the mind that the danger has passed. Safety no longer requires self-abandonment. It's finally safe to come home.